Morning, market chameleons, and my favorite chameleon, Dimitri Pargamanik. How you doing, Dima?
Good morning, Will. How are you?
Awesome. We started 1 minute late. That's only happened a few times. Always some technical difficulties on my end. Sorry about that, Dima. Let's start with the disclaimer. What do you think?
Yep.
If I can get
So
that
good
disclaimer up.
morning, everyone. Before we get started, keep in mind, Will and I, Market Chameleon, we're not registered investment advisors. We're not broker dealers. We're not telling you what to do. We're just sharing ideas. If you need professional help, contact your broker. That's what they're there for, to help answer your questions and provide you with guidance. There's the disclaimer. And with that, we could get started.
Excellent.
So today, what I will do is we'll take a look at how we can screen for an unusual option activity by an option contract. So a lot of the times we've been using reports, we're looking for unusual option volume in aggregate, something that usually trades an X amount of option volume per day in all the option series. And if in aggregate it's trading more than average, that's usually what we typically used. But some people want to see what if there's an unusual volume on a particular option contract. It could be a call, it could be a put, it could be an out of the money strike and in the money strike, and it could be at any expiration. So how do we kind of isolate something that's going on in the market in a particular option contract? So we're going to take a look at that today. And we did just recently add that to an existing report. So, it's only been out there for a week. So we'll take a look at that. Also, how do we look for open interest on an option contract that could be unusual, and we'll go over how can we tell that, there's a big open interest in a particular option contract, because something in Tesla might be very different than in a different stock like XYZ. So before we get to that report, we'll quickly recap what's going on in the pre-market hours as usual. And then if there are no questions, I'll move on to that report. And here we're starting out pre-market report. We got today's most active stocks trading in pre-market hours, biggest percentage gainers, biggest percentage decliners. I'm just looking at the list of gainers. So 30 stocks made our percentage gainers list, 76 on a percentage decliners. From that perspective, looks like a more bearish bias at the opening. I'm also going to take a look at the higher market cap stocks, 20 billion or higher. And here we see Toomey, the percentage gainers list, 23 on a percentage decliners list. Again, not a huge list of stocks, but still tilted more towards a bearish bias at the open. And what do we have coming up today? Well, the Fed's going to now
give us meeting is today, this afternoon.
Right, and they'll give us some more insights, what they think about inflation, and when do they expect to start raising interest rates, because they start guiding you ahead of time. Up till now, their expectation was late 2023. Now people are saying with the numbers that we're seeing coming in with inflation, they might signal that could start a little bit earlier, maybe even in 2022, so a year from now. And they were also still buying, I believe, bonds every month. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the big thing, right? Is they're actually going into the marketplace and buying these bonds. And companies are issuing new debt in record amounts. I mean, they are, and that's because it's a built-in buyer, right?
Yep. And I think it's pretty significant. I mean, like 100 billion, hundreds of something like that every month. They're buying, I think mortgages and other bonds, keeping the yields on those low as well. So we'll see what they say today and what they're signaling, because then you get this little chart, of their expectations, and they tell you what they think the long-term interest rates are going to be, going out into the future. If there are no questions on this, let's go then to the excuse me, to the report, and we'll screen for options volume and open interest. Sorry. So here on the under options, we got the under the options, we got open interest analysis. I'm going to click on here, and I'm going to go to this tab by option contract. So this is taking a look at all the companies out there that trade options. You've got option contracts on different strikes, different expirations, and some of them will have volume, some of them won't have any volume, some of them will have open interest, some of them will not have open interest. And this is a way to kind of narrow it all down, because if you add them all up, I don't know how many option contracts are out there, but if there are 4,000 stocks with options, then multiply that by a bigger factor. So down here, we have some statistics on these option contracts, and then we have some filters to narrow them down. So a couple things here. I'm going to go over the data first, and then we'll use some of these filters, but just to understand the importance of these data points. So here we have the symbol, stock symbol, AA. This is what the stock price was. We're not open yet, so this is as of yesterday's close. This is what the stock did by the end of the day. Here we have the average option volume in that stock. So this average option volume, it's taking all the option volume in aggregate in that stock. So if you had call traded, a put traded, a call traded in one expiration, and then a call traded in a different expiration, and then a different strike, you sum those up, right, for the day, and then you take, on average, how many option contracts does that trade per day. So you could, take the last 90 days, on average, daily option volume 24,636. So this will be important because we're going to use this as our as one of our benchmarks. So here we have an option contract here. This is the expiration, April 14th, 2022. This is the 35 strike, and it's a put. So on this row, this is the option contract we're looking at. And here we have kind of 4 bins that we put stuff in. Here we look at the option volume. So this is the option volume, the option price change on the day. Okay. This will start updating after the market opens, on a 15-minute delay, but it'll start running on a timer and it'll refresh. So this will update during the day. Open interest, right? These 3 bins here, this is looking at open interest statistics. Open interest only gets reported once a day in the morning before the market opens. It's based on settled trades, end of day settled trades, take into consideration, any exercises, assignments, split, etc. Those get reconciled overnight by the Options Clearing Corporation, and we get that data the next business day in the morning. So these are only as of this morning. They're not going to be updating intraday when there is no live open interest data. Okay, that's how open interest is reconciled. So right now, since the market didn't open yet, these are the latest numbers, the open interest. After the market opens, if there's trading, right? If there's trading and there's option contracts, we won't know the new open interest until the next day. Okay, so we got open interest here, and we look at open interest from 3 different perspectives. Whenever you have open interest, on an option contract, one of the things you have to decide is like, well, is that high or low? Okay, and maybe in AA, something that's, let's say, 3,000 contracts, open interest on a single contract, that could be a lot for this particular symbol, but that might not be a lot for Tesla or Microsoft or for Amazon. Okay. So because of that, we need to kind of measure this based on a benchmark. So the only way to do that is kind of look at historical benchmarks to assess, well, is this more than usual? Is this average? Maybe it's below usual. So we need certain types of benchmarks to start measuring the open interest on these contracts. So,
D,
yeah.
real quick, we had some people join late. Maybe could you please refresh how you actually got to this screen?
Yeah. So under options up here, I went to open interest analysis and then buy option contract tab. So there's all these tabs I did by option contract. Okay. And it's important to know that when these are updating, you know, and a lot of people don't get this because I get emails all the time. How come I see volume, but the open interest is not changing? Again, it's important to understand that's how things work. Open interest gets calculated by the Options Clearing Corporation based on settled end of day settled trades. So, so there are a couple things here we're analyzing: option volume, right? The volume on the day, and yesterday's, you know, the open interest resulting as of yesterday. And we kind of need to figure out, is this unusual activity, and is this an unusual amount of open interest on an option contract? To do that, just recapping really quickly, we have to use certain types of benchmarks, right? Because some people who trade, like, let's say you trade Apple stock every day. And if you trade Apple stock every day, you might even know if, you know, 1 million contracts trades on a particular option, you'll know, well, that's unusual because I don't see that from day to day. But if you see 5 or 10,000 option contracts, you'll say, okay, that's not so unusual. So you might just know that because you're looking at it every day. But if you're not looking at it every day, you don't know. So you need some kind of benchmark to let you know, well, this is way above what, on average, what it trades. Okay. So these three bins are going to look at open interest and compare them to 3 different benchmarks. So this first benchmark, what it's doing is, well, let me tell you what these, first of all, here's the new open interest. Here's what it changed on a day, 833. So the new open interest, 1,669. It went up by 833 option contracts. And as a percentage, that's up almost double, right, from the previous day. So the open interest increased on this line by almost 100% by 833 contracts. So how do we compare that if this is a lot? So we could, one way to do it is we could take the open interest change. So we know it went up by 833. Well, how much is that change relative to the average daily option volume? So remember, we talked about this, 24,636. So we could take that and use that as a percentage of the average daily option volume, and then we get this. So it's 3.4%. So that doesn't seem that significant, you know, at least. But if we saw a very large one, you know, like if on average the option volume is 24,000, and all of a sudden on one line the open interest increased by, let's say, 50,000, well, that alone represents, you know, two times the average daily option volume in all the strikes. So that would be pretty significant change in open interest, right? Just so if you had to get out of it, you could think of it, that's more than twice the average option volume per day, and you have it only in one option contract. So that's one benchmark this change, the amount that it went up, as a percentage of average daily option value. The other thing we could take a look at is, well, we know that there's 1,669 contracts open on this particular option strike, right? July 16th, 35 put. How much does that represent as a total of open option? Like, we're trying to find out in this situation, where is the open interest concentrated on AAA? So there's a total amount of 324,587 contracts right now, open interest in total in this stock. So this one option contract is only at 0.5% of the total open interest. So this here would look at the concentration of open interest. So for example, if you had, out of 324,000, if, 300,000 of that was on this line, that would be a big concentration just on this one strike, right? Like 90% or something. So this here is looking at the concentration of open interest over here. This is looking at the open interest change on the day as a percentage of average daily option value. Another metric here we could use is if at expiration, let's say these options are in the money, right? And if they're in the money, that means they're going to be automatically exercised and converted to stock. So if it's converted to stock at expiration, how much of that is relative to the average daily stock volume? So this here is comparing that if these were all exercised in one day, that would represent 2.5% of the average daily stock volume. Okay. And that's important too, because if on average a stock trades 1 million shares and you have this out of the money call, and if it crosses that strike and you got like 2 million shares that are going to be converted to stock, that's twice the average daily volume in that stock alone. All right, so that's what you're looking at for something significant. That could be an inflection point where there's a concentration of open interest and where there's a change in open interest that's significant relative to the average daily volume. Any questions there, Will, on these three?
Nope, we're good. Yep.
Okay. So here, this is the volume on the day. So this particular one, AA, the last price was $1.65 on this put. That put option relative to previous days mark-to-market close is up 23 cents. Implied volatility is 53, so that was up 1.9% from the previous day's close. The total volume on this option contract yesterday was 1,272. And on a relative basis, that represents 5.2% of what the average volume is in aggregate in AA. Okay. So I'm going to do some screens. Maybe that will be also helpful, but those are the data elements that we're looking at. So let's say today, we wanted to look at the markets will be open by like 10:30, 11, 12 o'clock. There'll be some volume, and we want to take a look where the volume in a particular contract is well above what we see, on an average day. So here we could use this volume. Sorry, this is open interest. So this is looking for the volume as a percentage of the average daily option volume. And let's just look at something above 200%. Okay, so that'll do the first screen. So here, AEL, we see that stock 32.58 up to 2.2%. And it typically doesn't trade that much volume. So 47 contracts trade on a given day in total. Yesterday, on November 21st, November 19th expiration, 2021, the 30 put, right, there was 299 contracts that traded, which you could see here is above what it typically trades. The option yesterday closed at $1.78. It was down 43 cents. The implied volatility was a little bit lower, 5.9%. So here we could kind of even get insights what probably happened, because now we could take a look at the open interest, because remember, these are all closing prices. And we see that open interest declined by 299, exactly this volume, and now it fell to 270. So in this situation, somebody just closed out of the position and the open interest decreased. Okay. So that's, and the reason it's high is that just 299 is not particularly high, but it's just high based on what this option trades on a given particular day. So let me sort it by, I'm going to sort this by the highest volume. So we see here WOOF, woof, that stock was down 9.4% yesterday. On an average day, trades 8,964 contracts. So yesterday on the June 30th call, this is expiring this week, we're looking at the volume yesterday in this option contract was 63,324. So just this option alone traded 63,000 contracts. If we compare that on average, Wolf trades 8,964 contracts. So you could see that's 700% higher than the average daily volume. So here we see that the price of this option fell by $1.60, but that's not surprising because we see that the stock fell by 9.4%. The implied volatility declined by 28%. So it's still pretty high volatility, but it did decline yesterday, which is indicating that there are potentially more sellers of premium than buyers yesterday, because if implied volatility is falling, then the relative premium is going down. If implied volatility is going up, the relative premium for those options are going up, so more buyers than sellers. So perhaps what was, and I do see that the open interest increased as well. So you could infer, we don't know for sure what happened because there's a lot of different traders in there and we don't know what everybody's intent was.
Yeah,
But
we don't
to
know
me,
the news, right?
we
Was
don't
it
even-
earnings? Was it a bad? I mean, this, I think Woof is the Petco Chewy brand. So it's
Right.
a pet which had a big run to stay at home and everyone's buying dogs and cats. So who knows what the news is? Maybe they reported, something fiscally, off or whatever.
Right. And all we are seeing is just the activity and just analyzing it. And then you'd have to go and do more research.
Again, this is a place to start your research. I know Mike was asking, how do you identify if it's necessarily bullish or bearish? And there's no one identification whether it's bullish or bearish. But to me, looking at this, it looks like something happened and it's probably bearish. Now, is it long-term bearish, short-term bearish? You got to make, your own decisions, right?
Yeah. We could go look at I'd have to go look through the news again. I'm just kind of filtering out just to see what's going on, in the options, but this would be the starting point. And if I had to infer what's going on, just looking at this, I would say based on the stock dropped, the open interest increased, and the implied volatility is down. So my inference is there's probably people who are long this stock, and as the stock went down, used this option, sold this option to collect some premium to offset some of their, losses on that long stock. So if the stock goes back up, they probably won't mind. They want that. If it doesn't go up, it stays here, it goes down, they sold some premium to collect it. And My inference is they're selling because the implied volatility is coming in. So there's more sellers than buyers, and the open interest went up, meaning that it's not just people closing out, but there are new positions in this option contract that are being open, right? So that would be just my initial inference, but I would still go in there and just take a look what else is going on.
Yeah, it could be mutual funds who own it. It could be hedge funds and they don't want to liquidate the stock. But from here, that's a 20%
I don't think the
move.
mutual funds could trade the options, but certainly like individuals or
funds.
hedge funds
Yeah,
or some
family offices.
they would be able to go look in the options and say, oh, stock is down. Let me see if I could sell some calls against it, because maybe they don't expect it. If you don't expect it to go above this anyway in the next couple of days, then you might just collect some of that premium and offset some of those losses. So that's what's going on in the option contract. We could come over here and we already talked about that the open interest increased. The open interest increased by 4,482. That's 50% of what on average this option trades per day. So it's pretty significant change in the open interest. How much open interest is concentrated on this line? So in total, there's 190,441 contracts open on Wolf. And just this line alone is 12.7% of all the open interest. Okay, so not like a really big significant, but 12.7%, not insignificant either. So what if Wolf went back up and it crossed the 30 strike and these became exercisable, converted to stock? Well, on average, Wolf trades 2.87 million shares of stock per day, right? So that's the average stock volume. So if all these options became exercisable, so that would represent 84% of the average daily stock volume, right? So that's pretty significant, because you got 84% of the stock volume is potentially right there exercisable in these options. So those are just different ways of starting to look for, either unusual volume in a particular contract, what happened in the open interest, and kind of get a sense of painting yourself a picture what traders are doing, in these stocks. So maybe we'll continue on this. Oh, wait, well, tomorrow is Thursday, right?
Tomorrow is Thursday, D. Tomorrow we will not be having a show.
Right. So tomorrow we're skipping the show. We'll continue this on Friday, because, I won't be able to be there in the morning tomorrow, but we'll continue it on Friday. And I'll come back to the screener and we'll look for, other screens using open interest, concentration of open interest, and, looking for different call and put scenarios.
So we're going to do a part 2 tomorrow.
Well, not tomorrow, but
Thursday. Sorry,
Friday.
Friday
we'll do a part 2.
And remember, we have Jake on Monday, so we'll have a show Monday morning, the pre-market show, and then we'll have Jake will be on live for his first show at about 10 a.m. Monday morning. So we've got a lot of interesting stuff coming up, D. It's great. Last night we didn't even talk about it. We had there was a great show with Raj, and actually for the first time we had a chameleon step up and come on live, only with his voice on the Zoom. So that was
very nice.
Yeah,
awesome.
So we had a live question asked, which was
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. Great job, buddy. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining. Stay safe out there. Have a good trading day, and we'll hope to